My name is Jeanette Breckenridge, and I've been clinically diagnosed with familial periodic paralysis, hypokalemia, and congenital myasthenic syndrome. The first conscious recognition that I had of having any kind of problems was in the 1980s. I would wake up in the morning and my legs wouldn't work, is all I could tell the doctor. My husband would help me get out of the bed. I would just stand up, and in about 30 minutes I could shuffle and then begin to walk. I now know that I had symptoms in my childhood. In elementary school, I would have severe leg cramps, just like screaming as a child. And they would tell me that it was growing pains. And I was eventually sent during that period of time to a national clinic out of state. Stayed there for like 5 days, still with no real answer. I'd had thyroiditis, and they thought that I was bedridden too long with that without rehab, and so that was the diagnosis at that point. I ended up in an allergist's office for, allergy testing and everything. And that doctor put me on an antihistamine decongestant, and that took away all the joint pain that I had. It took away all the waking up in the morning. I didn't paralyze anymore. So for 15 years after that, I lived really a normal life. I traveled and did everything a normal person would. And then actually what triggered it from there was the company that made the particular brand product that I was on quit manufacturing the decongestant. And so I ended up switching to different brands, and shortly thereafter I crashed. Ended up one night in the hospital looking like I had a coma, and I could hear everybody, but I could not communicate at all. I was totally paralyzed. I couldn't open my eyes, couldn't speak. I came out of it in about 4 or 5 hours, and the ER doctor, they had done a CT scan, and they had done an MRI. The thing that really stood out was a low potassium of about a 2.7, 2.8. Right now, primarily my symptoms are muscle weakness, difficulty breathing at times if I exert myself. I have to sit a lot more than I did even a year ago. I definitely have a right-sided weakness. You can almost like draw a line down my body. With myasthenia, the more you use the muscle, the weaker it gets. It's more of an exhaustion versus the quick trigger of the periodic paralysis. I do know that when we treated the myasthenia, the periodic paralysis got more under control. The drug that a doctor put me on to treat the periodic paralysis actually exacerbated and brought forth the myasthenia. I do have 2 rare diseases. The reason rare diseases become difficult for people is because the pharmaceutical companies don't invest as much into producing the drugs and finding the answers and everything, because there is not a population to speak of. But I think, quite honestly, there are a lot more that people have not just been diagnosed with, and that's what I've seen in doing the research. Sometimes I wonder if it's just one gene that we haven't found yet because of that. And that was the difficulty in diagnosing the case, because they were looking for one box, the symptoms, and I had symptoms in both boxes. I could paralyze very quickly, and then I could paralyze very slowly. I know there are triggers. If you do exercise too excessively and then go to a dead stop, I can eat certain foods at certain restaurants, and before I get home, if it's a takeout, I have literally paralyzed like from the waist down. Sometimes I'll paralyze just in my arms, and my son will have to feed me and help.
Compared to my mom, my symptoms are very light, but I do have symptoms. My mom had noticed that I started to have ptosis in the eye. We had some photos where that had it after kind of a lengthy period of work, and it was a photo taken after work, and the eye is kind of half masked, which is related to the myasthenia. And then when describing anecdotally an issue where I was playing tennis, and then kind of finished up, came and sat down. My mom was actually in the car waiting, and I needed to take some time because my legs weren't working in terms of driving home. So sat for about 30, 45 minutes and talked, and then the legs started working again. So that kind of anecdotal discussion, and then what had happened kind of in the family over generations, I think they've said, yeah, you're likely to have had all this as well.
Today, my lifestyle, it's limited, obviously, but I still can go out shopping, on small trips and everything. Again, I don't drive, but can do a little gardening and things like that. So, I try to keep up with that to keep the muscles going. I had to quit weightlifting and things like that I used to could do, even not that many years ago. I manage through diet. That's very important for me, primarily heavy protein and fats with it, and less vegetables. My carbs are broccoli, carrots, green beans, that type of thing. I do have limitations, but I still, function right now.
From a diet standpoint, Mom had a good success on keto. I'm a management consultant. I don't do a lot of physical activity. I'm usually in a chair or on a computer most of my days, but I found that a couple of years ago, I was spending about half of my week working and about half of my week recovering. And so I started eating a high protein, high fat, low carb diet, and really pretty rigorously at the beginning. And it completely turned it around for me. And physical activity, though, in terms of sports, I used to play golf and tennis a lot. I was playing golf a couple of months ago and having a hard time after 9. So that definitely has slowed down.
It's very important to know the triggers for periodic paralysis. There's like 4 of them. For me, the triggers are too much sodium, too much exercise, and immediate rest. If I can keep walking or moving, then, it's better. Too much carb. If you provoke them, they're going to cause you problems. But if not, if you'll be aware of them and what it is for you individually, and primarily it is that there are set ones for the periodic paralysis, then you're okay.
Part of what we go through in terms of the disease is trying to figure out when you're going to get an attack. And so one of the times my mom was actually trying out a new pain medication, and they had given her a tiny dose, like a child-sized dose of this, because she's really reacts very strongly to any medication. And so when she took it, we had actually driven to the hospital and parked in the parking lot, because we found that this is often a good time to experiment. Like, if we're going to experiment with something, then let's be, somewhere where we're close. And sometimes we go home, and sometimes we have to go in. But this time, actually, she had taken the dose. Within probably 15 minutes, she started to paralyze.
With my condition, I have a significant amount of pain, and it seems to go in cycles. Again, I have the right-sided hemisphere in my body. The left side is normal. I can pick up things, I can go and all. The right side is weak constantly, and I have significant face pain. I do have double vision from the myasthenia and wear prisms in my glasses and everything. Getting outside and gardening has really been good for me, just as a mental break. It's really nice to be out in the fresh air, the sunshine, if it's not too warm. I do have a problem with heat. I cannot tolerate. I do have an ice vest for the summers if I'm out any substantial time in any really significant degree of heat. For some people, it is the cold weather that will weaken them. I will get pain with cold weather. I mean, really significant pain. And but that, I think, is the genetics. the DNA is how it's going to affect you, and possibly if you have a secondary condition. And I fight every day. I would honestly say it's a fight, and each year as I get older, it gets to be a little harder. I really fight to stay away from it. It's very important to have some kind of distraction, like a hobby. For me, I went through a period of baking sweets, believe it or not, for my family, and I couldn't even taste them. Gardening became important to me, and it's been fun because I can see plants grow and enjoy the sunshine and the rain and all of that. So if you can find things that you can do that gives you a mental break from the everyday, struggles of life anyway, you're always better off. It does help you keep positive. It really does, because your mind goes away to something that's fun and entertaining and enjoyable.
Yeah, I think as a caregiver, your first motive is just the fact that you love the person that you're giving care to, right? And so there's really no limit of what you would want to do for them. From a practical standpoint, it changes your life. I was living in California 15 years ago. I came home for Christmas, and I've been home, back in Florida ever since. And so, but that is easily a small price to pay, for your mom or for anyone that you love. You have to stay upbeat. You have to be encouraging. You have to let people move at their own speed. I think that, you remember why you're there in the first place. You remember how much you love this person, and that puts everything in perspective. It's a small price to pay.
If you would like to know more about periodic paralysis, visit periodicparalysis.org. And if you enjoyed this video and want more, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell so you don't miss any future videos. It really does help spread the word. You can view other videos about periodic paralysis by clicking the thumbnails to the right. If you have questions, just leave a comment below or reach out to us on social media. We'd love to hear from you.